Good evening. Welcome to Fantasy Formula One Podcast. I'm your host, Paul, and today we are doing the driver bio for George Russell, number 63, driving with Mercedes. Kicking off the year, hang on one second. I've got to get my stats going. Kicking off the year, because he's a Mercedes, and Mercedes is such a dominant team, they're one of the top tier teams, right? And so at least at the start of the 2023 season, you had Red Bull, who was the current reigning champion. You had Mercedes, who with Lewis Hamilton has been dominant the last decade with a whole bunch of champions. And you have Ferrari, that just is a championship team. They were very dominant back in the day. But those are the three top tier teams. So the fact that George Russell is the second driver on the top tier team means you're going to get him, because he's driving a Mercedes car, he's going to be worth a lot of money. So he came in at $18.6 million, finished the season at $20.2 million. So he only had a little bit of an increase, and we're gonna see why here in a little bit as we go through the season. So kicking it off with Bahrain, qualified 6th, finished 7th. Again, strong. He got 16 fantasy points. Great. Saudi Arabia round 2, qualified 4, finished 4, 18 fantasy points. These are strong showings. The issue that we're going to address is not if Russell is a good driver. We're not going to be addressing if Mercedes is a good driver. We're going to be addressing his performance versus the value, because a Mercedes, absolutely, but is he worth the $20 million that he was valued at? So so that's what we're looking for. We're not George Russell and Mercedes. These are not a middle of the bottom 10 drivers. Like, this is not that conversation. Going to round 3 in Australia, he qualified 2nd and crashed out. Got a DNF on lap 17, and everybody else got DNFs on lap 56 and 52, and 0 and 6. There's a lot of DNFs there, so he probably got caught up in that. But got -7 fantasy points for that race. And then in Azerbaijan, just didn't quite. He started out those first 2 races. He was at the front of the top 10, and now he's at towards the back of the top 10. Qualified 11th, finished 8th, which is good. Got 25 fantasy points. Did lots of good passing there. And he's inking his way back up, right? So round 5 in Miami, qualified 6th, finished 4th, came out with 28 fantasy points, just outside of the podium. Round 7 in Italy didn't take place. Round 7 in Monaco, qualified 8th, finished 5th. And got 16 fantasy points, right? So now he's, instead of qualifying top, finishing top, now he's qualifying towards the bottom of the top 10, but he's getting back up towards that middle. And, okay, cool. Then on to round 8 in Spain, qualified 12th, finished 3rd. Boom. First podium, and walked away with 31 points. And this was completely on merit, too, because there were 0 DNFs. So it wasn't like Ferrari and Red Bull just started getting DNF'd, and so something crazy happened. No. He got 31 points, finished 3rd, first podium. Wonderful. Round 9, Canada, qualified 5th. And then got a DNF on lap 53, and we're not gonna. And there's some pretty cool. There was a really crazy. I'll pick that out here later. I think he DNF'd like on the last lap or something, but we'll go here. So anyway, 53, got -12 points for that. Round 10 in Austria, qualified 11, finished 7, got 34 points. Again, very strong showing. The car, the Mercedes, getting lots of passes. We'll see how many passes he did. But starting out of the points, finishing in the points, trending in the right direction. Lewis Hamilton qualified 5th, finished 8th. So if you notice, just based on this one, we have to go back and look. I'm curious what Lewis Hamilton did in round 9. Lewis Hamilton finished 3rd. Okay, so but he crashed. Let me see what the previous race. Russell finished 3rd, and Lewis Hamilton finished 2nd. Okay, so it's interesting to see in Formula One how sometimes the teammates finish back to back with each other, right? It shows how closely in tune their cars are. And as soon as there's a split, as soon as one teammate's finishing in the top 10, the other teammate's not, well, then you're wondering if they're cars are evolving differently or what's going on. But George Russell is finishing just behind Lewis Hamilton, and Lewis Hamilton, again, is like a 6 or 7 time world champion. So Austria qualified 11th, finished 7th, and his teammate is qualified 5th, finished 8th. So it looks like these Mercedes are middle, bottom of the top 10 performance cars. Round 11, he qualified 6th, finished 5th, and walked away with 18 fantasy points. Round 12 in Hungary, qualified 18. Don't know what happened there. Finished 6th, boom, 27 points, right? So they're sticking really, like Mercedes is showing, they're in that 5 to 10 range. That's where they're at least at this point in the season. Qualified 8th, finished 6th, walked away with 28 points. Qualified 3rd, finished 17th. What happened there? He was a lap down. He finished all the laps. Not sure what went on in round 14 in the Netherlands, but just was not a good race for him. Round 15 in Italy, George Russell qualified 4th, finished 5th. Fine. By comparison, Hamilton finished 6th. See, boom, back to back. And George Russell walked away with 17 fantasy points. Round 16 in Singapore, this was the one that Ferrari won, the only race Red Bull did not win the entire season. George Russell qualified 2nd and crashed out on lap 61. Got -2 points. And Lewis Hamilton finished on the podium. His teammate finished on the podium. Round 17 in Japan, qualified 8th, finished 7th with 14 fantasy points. Round 18 in Qatar, qualified 2nd, finished 4th with 37 fantasy points. See, these are the sort of points you need to be putting up if you're going for 20 million, right? Qualified 17th in the United States, Texas, qualified 17th and finished 20th. And I think that is not accurate. 3 got 20s, 1, 2. Yeah, I goofed that up. I didn't type that over. He finished 5th, not 20th. Let all my stuff kind of reset. It always blinks for a minute when I go changing something like that. And then where'd Kevin Magnussen go? He got, that's what I did wrong. Everybody, you're going to get to see real time me adjusting my stats. Isn't that wonderful? And then Yuki Tsunoda got 13. Yeah, so here we go. So these dudes, Kevin Magnussen, all these cats, this happens sometimes. Go up there, boom, and then so again, you got 13, Yuki Tsunoda, where Yuki got 8. Okay, so what am I doing wrong here? Daniel Ricciardo? Where'd Daniel Ricciardo go? How'd Daniel Ricciardo do? He got 15th. Oh, that's what I did wrong. Okay, my bad. Copy that. Go back there. Daniel Ricciardo. As soon as, for all my stats, right? So as soon as, and I've talked about it in previous podcasts, but forgive my kind of hiccuping there. For all you people on watching me on YouTube or on the social medias, you're like, dude, do you know how to do your stats? Well, what happened? And I thought I'd done a good job fixing it. I guess I hadn't. So when Nick DeVries was let go by AlphaTauri, and Red Bull brought in their third driver, Daniel Ricciardo, and gave it to AlphaTauri to race. Well, when that happened, I had to go through and it changed how I copy and paste and insert all the stats into my spreadsheets, and it adjusted the numbers. The numbers were just off by a little bit for all the ones that Daniel Ricciardo was in, because he was in and then he was out, and we lost him was in and lost him was out and Ricciardo was in. Anyway, so it took me a second. I thought I had corrected it all, but I guess I hadn't there. So I apologize. We're back on track now. George Russell finished 5th, walked away with 25 points from round 19 in Texas in 2023. Round 20 in Mexico. You know what? This is getting to be... I am not going to have to go Daniel Ricciardo. Where'd he go? Daniel Ricciardo got 7th. Okay. So I apologize profusely for not... Daniel Ricciardo got 7, and then Oscar Piastri got 8. Okay, looks like I had another race where I didn't do it right, but I'm fine. George Russell got 6, walked away with 18 points. Mercedes, which actually that just realized that one race that I just kind of corrected his DNF on. That's going to be, I have to go back and edit that. So George Russell finished, I have him finishing 20th. He crashed out on lap 57 because now let's go all the way down to Daniel Ricciardo. Normally I do this before, but I'm not going to restart this. This is just the way it is. Sorry. Like, the world isn't perfect. All right. It's really not. I spent a long time working on these spreadsheets, and I find mistakes. So if you're looking for a zero defect podcast, then I apologize. This is not it. George Russell got his DNF and got -1 point in Brazil, round 21. Las Vegas, and that's what threw all this off. Is now George Russell's back, man. Here we're right. Sorry, Dan Ricciardo's back. Perfect. So I got this one right. Round 22 in Las Vegas. George Russell qualified 4th. Great, finished 8th. Got positive 14 points. But Las Vegas was just such a. Everyone was new on Las Vegas this year because it was the first race. It was a street road course. It was the first race time it had been raced on, and Lando Norris hit a pothole or whatever. Or hit a manhole cover. Round 23, Abu Dhabi, qualified 7th, finished 7th. And, man, he did not. He qualified 7th, finished 3rd. Because I did not, again, fix that. Go up to there. Boom. Daniel Ricciardo, where'd he finish? He finished 11th. Perfect. So he qualified 7th, finished 3rd, got 32 fantasy points. So let's go ahead and And in case you're wondering, you're like, Jason, how come? What if you have to go back and reset? Are you like, well, no, because I brought in the numbers from 2 different pages on from the fantasy website. So I brought them in 2 independent leagues, and then one of them has them in alphabetical names in alphabetical order. One is the order as they come in, and I have 2 different equations working both of them. So no, the numbers are fine. I just reading them off like that, it just didn't work. So with George Russell, for his end-of-year stats, he raced 22 rounds, which is good, overtook 134 times with an average of about 6 per race. He had 2 podiums, so for about 10%, and he finished in the top 10 on 17 of the 22 races, which is a 77.27% of races he finished in the top 10, which is good. Those are the sort of points you need to be able to put up. And we're going to get to his points per million here in a minute. But the issue are the points he's putting up worth the $20 million price tag, right? The 1/5 of your budget. It might just be overpricing him. But then again, he's Mercedes, right? So again, we'll get to it in a second. DNF's 3. That's way too much. 13.64% of races he DNF'd. He got a fastest lap award once, which is good. Never got driver of the day. He finished with 384 fantasy points, which is a 0.86, and I concur with those numbers. If he hadn't gone up from his 18.6, it still would have been, he would have gone a little bit better. But the issue is not with him, and 18.6 is a wonderful points per million to have. It really is. The issue is that he's taking up 20% of your budget. So that is an awful lot of your budget that's gone for 0.86, and those DNFs really, really stink. And I don't know. So he is one of the, I'm remembering off the top of my head, but he is one of the best drivers, or one of the all-around value drivers that the Fantasy F1 website said that would be the best, would be on the best team if you had gotten him at the beginning and gone to the end. I believe he was on it. My hang up with George Russell is that it just the money it's hard to spend 1/20th of your budget on one person and have them have that many DNFs, right? But also, I know a lot of people who did have him on their team, and they did very well. His points per million were there. The hard part was his DNFs. But also, as soon as and this is the same issue Sergio Perez had, right? George Russell is an amazing driver. He truly is, and so is Sergio Perez. The bummer with George Russell is that he is on the same team as a multiple world champion. So no matter what he does, Lewis Hamilton is better. If that makes sense. So as soon as you have Russell on his own team, well, no, he's doing great. He's a lead driver, but because he's on Mercedes, we're expecting all this great stuff from him. And as soon as Russell was driving AlphaTauri, or as soon as he was driving even Mercedes, he would probably be $5 million less. He'd probably be about a $15 million driver, at least at the start of the year. But because of the Mercedes label, they bumped him up, $5 million. So he is definitely a driver to have. If you want to lean into Mercedes on like the Mercedes this year for 2023, they were just plagued with not being able to keep up. As we're talking about the trends, they just weren't able to keep up with the front of the pack. They would always regress towards the center or the bottom of the top 10. And with that big of a price, with this big of a price tag, you were better off spending that $20 million on Sergio Perez or putting it towards Red Bull, or divvying up that money and putting it towards, Aston Martin and McLaren and stuff like that. So, but no, definitely keep an eye out for George Russell and Mercedes, because as soon as Mercedes gets their race pace a little bit better, then you could very easily find George Russell and the rest of Mercedes, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. I'm sorry. You could find them contending for the top positions with Red Bull, and a winning team could be Russell and Mercedes against Red Bull if Red Bull's next car isn't as fast as the RB19 is. So definitely keep an eye on them. Well, I hope you enjoyed this and hope this helped. Have a great night. Cheers.